Guys, I was inspired to discuss the subject of today's video by some of the recent conversations I have had with Serge Del Mar. You can find Serge on YouTube. The name of his channel is Serge Del Mar, and his handle is at literally Serge. So in my chats with Serge, he has mentioned, he's used this phrase. And the last time he used this phrase in a chat that we were having, I asked him to explain what he meant by it. And the phrase was something like Scientology laundering felonies, laundering crimes. And I said, tell everyone what you mean by that. And it has to do with Scientology basically getting its members to confess to felonies so that Scientology can make money on the information. Now, this is one of these things, an example of a concept that the way Serge describes it has gotten me to think about certain things that happen in Scientology in a different way than I had ever thought about it previously. And this is just one of those examples. And so it was while thinking about this that I decided I wanted to do a video on a mandatory interrogation that all new Scientologists get. And it's called the A to J check. And I'm going to explain all this. Scientologists don't just get this interrogation once. And this isn't even the only type of interrogation that Scientologists get. There's dozens and dozens of different kinds of interrogations. And how Serge describes how Scientology monetizes the confession of crimes is actually even more egregious in the other types of interrogations than the one we're going to talk about today. But the one we're going to talk about today is easy to talk about because Jeffrey Augustine at the Scientology Money Project blog has done an article about this particular type of interrogation, and it's going to make our discussion of this very easy to do. So let's talk about real quick. What does A to J mean? There's a reference in Scientology called sources of trouble. And in this context, when L. Ron Hubbard said sources of trouble, he meant sources of trouble for the organization. So like if someone were to come in wanting to do some Scientology courses, they're like, we need to know if this guy is a potential trouble source, a potential source of trouble. Now, guys, for those of you who've been hearing former Scientologists tell their stories, this phrase, potential trouble source, or PTS, is a phrase that you'll hear all the time because it has to do with something else you'll hear mentioned all the time, an SP, or a suppressive person. Now, in Scientology, an SP is basically anyone that Scientology has kicked out. There's other ways of defining an SP, but essentially, if Scientology says you're not a Scientologist anymore, they do that by declaring you a suppressive person. You are an SP. Now, in Scientology, the most common definition of a PTS, or a potential trouble source, is someone who has a connection to an SP. But in Scientology, PTS actually means many more things. It just means, is this person potentially a source of trouble for the Scientology organization that they are participating in?
Okay, so what was harmful action? Oh, I mean, I was 12, and David Miscavige recruited me, and he got my parents to sign off on me, like, getting into the Sea Org, So yeah, I get it. But what is your harmful action? You're done. I want to know what you did that's harmful, not David Miscavige's. I don't care about what David Miscavige did. I want to know what you did. Okay. I don't know. I guess I told the reporter that David Miscavige recruited me, and I was like, I don't know. They asked me if I wanted to be here, and I said, well, I wanted to be in school. Got it. So you lied to the reporter. Yeah, I guess I lied, and that probably harmed David Miscavige in some way.
Now, because Scientology is infatuated with finding out whether people are a source of trouble, every person who is starting a major Scientology course or auditing for the first time has to get what they call an A to J interview, an interview to find out if they fall into one of the 10 sources of trouble, type A through J. Now, guys, I grew up in a cult, but I can count A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. That is 10 different sources of trouble that L. Ron Hubbard broke down in his policy. And that's what this interview is about. So, okay, so this, let's just read the blog post. A to J, what Scientology wants to know before it approves you to receive services.